I'd like to begin by asking this question, Mr. Powell. I think it's interesting that you begin your work with a technique of animation, of three-dimensional animation of miniatures, as a fascinating technique to use cinematically. And as this develops, you find that the technique is able to express a vision or idea. Which do you think came first, the love of the technique, of the unreal and the imagination, or the vision that it eventually led to?
Well, actually, I came from an actor family. Most of my family were actors or singers or musicians, and I was basically lazy. I didn't like to work Sundays in the theater, so and I drew pretty good. In fact, I released even in the school. While in the school, I made a caricature book of all the professors. Of course, they were the prime targets. And because I could, because I could draw, I decided to become an architect, and architecture interests me very much. But in Hungary, before you can become an architect, you have to be either a bricklayer for 2 years or a carpenter. Being very cold in Hungary at winter time, I decided to be a carpenter because inside is much warmer than outside. And actually, I like woodwork a hell of a lot more than cold bricks, etc. And then so I graduated as an architect, and as soon as I got my diploma, it was no work in Hungary for an architect whatsoever. You couldn't, was no building in Hungary at that time. So I went back to my real love is motion pictures. And that's where it came awful handy for me, knowing materials, being a carpenter, being an architect, and knowing materials a lot and be able to draw. For a while I was drawing animated cartoons, and then I hit on a very simple idea. Why can't you make the same thing with three-dimensional puppets, the same technique, the same principle as with animation? In other words, before usually they made puppet films, for instance, like Starevich, probably the great masters. He made motion pictures, puppet motion pictures with animated figures. He moved them, as you all know, frame by frame, moving. You're familiar with the stop motion technique, aren't you? Huh? I'm sure. So, and then I decided to make series because that way you can exaggerate the movements just like in cartoon. You can exaggerate the movement. Instead, when somebody just walks like this, now you can extend the feet longer and make a longer step and shorten this a little bit more. So otherwise you have a certain amount of elasticity in the movement, which puppet film never had. So I actually used the same animation technique, but used puppets instead of any flat animation. But this was very fascinating because I enjoyed the puppetoon so much, and it was really, I'm coming back eventually to your question. It led me into the special effects because puppetoons is really special effects, all special effects, every part of it. The actors are special effects, everything, the sets. And actually doing puppetoons is a wonderful training because you have to do everything practically. You have to write, you have to come up with an idea, write, and then design the sets and design each individual scene. And it also teaches you to be very thrifty with every scene what you shoot, because every frame costs lots of time and money. Consequently, you make just so many films as you. And we actually shot the cut, never a frame over one way or the other, just the exact cut that we needed, never more. It's a very good training, and then later on, of course, you have to edit it and dub it. You actually go through regular motion picture production with puppets.
What I'm curious to know is that you turned from this level of a particular technique to science fiction?
Yes, because it's awful close. I think fantasy and science fiction is really, really brothers and sisters. Am I right, Mr. Science Fiction? They're really so close. Science fiction is really fantasy. And fantasy very often is science fiction. I think many of the Grimm fairy tales and Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales are falling in the science fiction category. And of course, you make this, then when I came to this country and set up the studio here and made quite a number of animated puppetoons for Paramount, I wanted to go in motion picture, in the regular motion picture field, in the regular feature. And we actually developed the Thumb project during the short period, the period while we were making the shorts for Paramount. At that time, we saw Thumb as a little animated character, where the little boy would be an animated character all the way through. And I couldn't sell it anywhere. No studio would buy the idea, none of them. Paramount had War of the Worlds. They bought the rights, I think, in 1920 or 1922 from the A.G. Wells. From A.G. Wells at that time, he was still alive. They bought it from him. And many producers and directors tried to make it at the time until I came along, tried to make it, but somehow they couldn't lick the script. And nobody was thinking about it. But the simplest thing is really follow the book as closely as you possibly can, you know. But anyway, they did make it. And I found it in the files when I came over to Paramount, found it in the files that they own this, and that's wonderful. War of the Worlds is a great story. So by that time they had, I think, something like $180,000 or something against it, accumulated. Other producers, other directors, writers, etc. I read through all the material, and none of them, it wasn't really helpful. And I told Paramount, look, I make you this picture if you sell it to me for $1. They were happy to get rid of it. They wrote it off anyway, so it wasn't important. But then we started shooting the picture. Barry Lyndon, who wrote 92nd Street, I think, and some Man on the Moon, say an English writer. He wrote a beautiful script on it. And then we started shooting, and 3 days later, the head of the legal department comes on the stage. George, you have to stop shooting. So what's the matter? What happened? She said, stop everything, let's come in the reverse. So I stop everything, I go to the front of it. So you know what happened? We went through our files, and we found out that we don't own the talkie rights to the War of the Worlds, the talkie rights. You see, that was sold in 1920, and they didn't make any provision for sound film. They only owned the silent motion picture rights. Well, fortunately, the A.G. Wells estate is a very decent group, nice people. They picked up the phone, and they told them what happened, and they sold them very reasonably. I think originally they bought the book for $20,000, and for another $8,000 they sold the talkie rights. So we started shooting right away, continued shooting. Now, through this incident, I became very friendly with the A.G. Wells estate people, especially with the son, Frank Wells. I think he's illegitimate son, but he is the son. He represents A.G. Wells. Very nice man, very talented, very fine man. And after they have seen the War of the Worlds, they offered to me a time machine. I said, you make it. We don't care what you pay. You go ahead and make it. And it was very decent. That, of course, I said, if I make it, I want to pay you at least the same amount what you got before. And we did. And I claimed I can make it for around $800,000, but they didn't believe me. So finally, we sat down, and it took me at least 10 days sit down with the production department and art directors, and every scene was actually, every shot was sketched out. I had probably thousands, more than every shot, because sometimes within a shot I had 2, 3 different sketches illustrating the movement, what's going on. And we went through and we made a budget for, I know the figure exactly, that was $836,000, and we made the picture for $827. You know, it came in. But this is, I think, what it does. It proves that good pre-planning is probably the most important thing if you want to make a picture within a reasonable budget. If you don't want to waste money, you know. And that's very, very important to planning it out. That's why, you know, when every script I have, I go through and I practically rewrite it. I don't use it for my rewrite, you know, but if I rewrite it with my handwriting, the script, I am in it with it and I visualize it. I make little thumbnail sketches all along. And it works. It works. And this came again from the animation technique. Taught me that the storyboards and, of course, with puppetoons where you use your hands, that was very, very helpful.
About how many pages a day did you do?
It varies. Average about 4. At least at the time, you know, when the lighting, it was much more complicated than today. We made as many as 30 setups a day, and as few as 3 or 4, depending what it is. But we averaged on usually about 17 setups a day. And in page count, around 3. For instance, Time Machine, I shot it 29 days, and it was exactly 29 days, and the script was, I believe, about 120 pages. But that lighting, it's a big difference. Today is so wonderful that you need little light, and you don't need the bulky equipments, and it's really a joy. Before that, you know, that's why I don't wear a watch, because all the time the setting up and the lights, and it takes time, and I just go like this, look at the time, go like this, go like this. So somebody told me, said, "What are you looking at your watch?" I said, "Time won't change." He said, "You're right, I'm not going to wear any more a watch. I don't wear a watch for 50 years.
What's the religious basis of your convictions? I mean, you obviously selected that material 3 times. All of them have like religious overtones, all 3 films, right?
Well, you asked me what's my religion is?
Yeah.
Well, I was born as a Catholic, but and I practiced. I was a very good Catholic when I was a boy, because in Hungary everybody is a Catholic practically, you know. And I was a very good altar boy. I was a Boy Scout and everything else. And I must say, I wish that everybody would enjoy the pleasure of being brought up religiously and being a Boy Scout, being an altar boy and all that stuff. I don't practice religion very much in the last 20 years or so, but I did bring up my children in the religion, and I don't practice it anymore either, but I think we have the basis of it, and without unknowing it, we do practice. I think we do good things. We love people, and we have no hatred. You know what? That's what religion anyway, isn't it?
Yeah. There's some kind of faith there, though, underneath that, right?
Yeah, I even like to believe of the world hereafter. I just like to believe it, because it makes me feel more comfortable that I go somewhere where there's still something going on. I just like to believe in it, and sometimes I wonder, am I just fooling myself? And then I don't question it anymore.
There's something interesting about the reaction to science fiction films. I think that that they do touch something in the imagination which other films do not. I wonder if you must know about the incident that happened when Orson Welles did War of the Worlds on the radio show.
Yeah.
And that was broadcast, and it caused virtually a national panic because people believed.
Yeah.
I heard people turned in the middle of this show, and they believed that the Martians had actually landed.
Yeah.
Hadley Cantrell at Princeton, I think, did a study on this afterwards because it was really an amazing thing. But I wonder if there's something in all of these films that touches that in us, something that brings us close to panic, or that touches something in our imagination that wants us to make us believe in the possibility of this. How do you view this?
You see, H.G.Wells primarily, he always had that, he worked on subjects which had an element of wonder in it, you know. He always had those suppressed desires or something what you always, hidden thoughts, you thought about it, because everything what he wrote, almost everything he wrote, dealt with the first man on the moon. Everybody, one time or the other, looked at the moon and said, I wonder, gosh, I wonder what's there. Everybody, I'm sure, thought of it one time or the other. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be invisible, like the Invisible Man? Or traveling in time, I wish I would be back or ahead of time, and so on. H.G. Wells's ideas, they were always very, very good for motion pictures. I wish he would be alive today because I think he would make a wonderful screenplay writer. He really wrote beautifully. He practically wrote for the screen in its time. In War of the Worlds, unfortunately, we couldn't equal the excitement of H.G. Wells's because that was real. It happened. When you go to a movie, you still know it's a movie. But we did a few things which was rather interesting. With Byron Haskin, we decided, being such a complicated film as that is, we decided that we have the camera south. And every time the Martian landed here in the desert, here is Los Angeles, everything went this way or that way. When we went to meet the Martians, we went left to right. When the Martians came, we came right to left. And one thing else, we never showed the Russians, Russians. the Martians' point of view at all, except that thing when we used one of their eyes and let's see how they see it, what do they see and how do they see, what do they look at us. But we never used, despite the pressure from the front of his book, which they wanted us to put in Martians with, believe it or not, they wanted to put in Martians in the spacecraft and with having uniforms and ranks on it, you know, so see how they die. They suggest, and we resisted it, and we told them, no, we're not going to shoot anything from the Martian point of view. We wanted us, the audience, to be attacked. And I think that was probably the reason that the picture had that impact, that you always felt you were attacked, you are part of it, you are an observer, and you will never go behind how the Martians look at us. And this was two interesting basic principles when you have complicated pictures. Be sure that your camera is going in one direction if it's something very complicated like this, which was hard to understand.
Something that struck me that was really effective in War of the Worlds, and also again in Time Machine, is the use of sound, associating a specific sound with the demon, and so that every time that sound is brought in, you have that tension. You use that again in the Time Machine when we heard the through the wells that go down into the ground, and we heard the beating of the.
That was an ordinary pump, an old broken down pump, slowed down, you know, something plop, plop. But we slowed it down.
How about the sound of the Martian flying saucers?
That was actually the oscillator what you hear in the projection room when they tune up the sound. Tune the sound. then it goes at a certain pitch, and we stopped it and played with that, and used that kind of electronic sound. But most of it electronic sound what we used. But I tell you something else what we had awful trouble with the Naked Jungle, where we had to have the noise of the ants. And that was a very difficult thing. What do the ants do? And especially billions of them. And we tried everything. We asked MGM to give us the sound of the locust from Good Earth. We put it together, it didn't match. It just somehow wasn't there. And I remember one Saturday afternoon, we in the sound department, we trying everything, crumpling paper and rubbing this, rubbing that. Nothing matches really. And we were really tired, and we thought we didn't solve anything today. So we went over to Obla, which is a little restaurant across Paramount, and then we had a Coke. And believe it or not, this happened. I had a Coke with lots of crushed ice in it, and I do like this. Hey boys, what do you think of this? That was the sound of the ants, crushed ice in a Coke, with the stirred with the straw. For some reason, that matched. I don't know. It's very interesting how you find this kind of crazy things out. And it's so difficult to, you see, for instance, why it doesn't fit the sound of the locust, which is kind of buzzing, etc. Just didn't fit, didn't work. And lots of other things, like I said, crushing Kleenex, paper, anything, and it doesn't work. Speeded up, slowed down, combined things, and then finally just crushing ice did it. Any of you have seen Satirical?
Yes, we all have.
How you like it? Now, I'm very curious, but how you like it?
Very well. Great film. Did you see it?
Yeah,
How did you like it?
very much. Very much, but really much.
It's very interesting that you mentioned the Satyricon, because when Fellini was here, one of the things he said about it was that, in a way, for him it was like a science fiction picture.
Yes,
He had to create a whole civilization in his own way.
yeah.
I think he denied it was
No.
He said it was similar to creating a whole civilization.
The behavior, the pantomime, and all these.
See, unfortunately, I didn't read the synopsis before I saw the picture, because I think I would have enjoyed it even more if I would have known what it's really about. This way you had to guess a little bit, because, but it was so effective, so wonderful. And,
He used
I think this is real motion picture. This is one thing no other medium can do except motion pictures. And that's, I think, very important. I like motion pictures when they really do what they can do best, the impossible, really. Because on stage you can do impossible things and any other entertainment form, but I think motion pictures is nothing impossible. You can do it somehow. And I really liked it very much. Any of you really loved it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Oh, yeah, it was good. Yeah. Very much. Yeah.
Do you feel you confront a frustration with audiences now who become more and more used to the techniques of the past, like always trying to outguess them?
Yeah, but it's not frustrating, a challenge, actually. It's just a challenge. You have to be just a little bit better, fool them a little bit more if you can. It's like a magician, to being a magician. He's delighted when he can fool the audience, and I think that's wonderful in motion pictures. When you make impossible motion pictures, if you really can fool them or scare them. Like in Naked Jungle, I always have I imagine there's some sadist in me or something. When we run the Naked Jungle in the projection room, usually I snuck up behind some women or men, sensitive ones especially, and when the ants came by the billions, all I had to do, take the hanky and do this. It was so funny. That worked every time. I personally like to believe what I'm doing at a particular time. When we made Destination Moon, it wasn't too hard to believe that it's possible. And we went to scientists, and we had Willy Ley for technical advisor. We had Werner von Braun in Conquest of Space. That picture isn't that good, though. But we had always good advisors, and it's important. And the belief is important. When you make a picture, like when I made Destination Moon, I believe that's possible, and it's going to happen this way. And I know it will happen, and etc. Even Time Machine, I believe that time traveling is possible. And if you believe in it, really, you make a better picture, because it shows the sincerity. In other words, you don't fluff it up, oh, what the hell, the public doesn't know it, do this and do that. It's not so. The audience feels if you're sincere in your effort. I remember when we didn't have big enough stage for the moon set, so we had to use something that we show a false perspective, because the set, I think the studio was only about 100 feet long. It's not enough for a real big set, a spectacular set like Moon should be. So we had to build false perspective. And even then we knew there are no such a thing as cracks on the moon floor, but that's the only thing we could devise to create a false perspective. In other words, we built those cracks, going away and diminishing, smaller and smaller. And we even used midgets for the background and real astronauts in the foreground. The midgets had also spacesuit on to have the false perspective created. I remember I got lots of letters. It got publicized that we use midget. And they say, I've seen the picture 3 times. Where are the midgets? I had to write them back and tell them which scene they were, particular scene they were.
Could you talk about how you go about combining miniature, the same scene with a live actor? For example, in Wonderful World of Brothers Grimm, the sequence of the dragon. There are scenes with the dragon and the live actors in the same shot. Could you talk about how you coordinate their movements?
Again, plan it out way in advance, and most of the time we use, in that particular picture, the blue screen version, where either we put the people in the front of the blue screen or the dragon, and we use the traveling mat system which the blue screen provides. The front projection is a wonderful idea. Of course, everybody in the special effect business knew about the front projection, but it took Kubrick to finally make a studio set up a front projection. It isn't very expensive to set up, but for some reason the major studios refused to recognize the validity of front projection. And I think that's a big step in the future, to use front projection instead of blue screens and other traveling mat devices.
You get the same main people though usually?
No, I work with different people, whoever is best suited for the particular problem. I think I work probably with 7 or 8 different special effects crew. But of course, if you find a good one, you use him over again. If you have the similar problem than you had when you worked with him. For a miniature man, you take the best miniature man you can get. And
Stick my neck out. If we had any problems, some of us with special effects, do you think we could get in touch with you?
please, I must tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm enjoying this immensely. I'm enjoying being with you because I feel the dedication and obsession what you have, which I also have, of making motion pictures. And I'm doing it like you're doing it not really for the money, and this is, I really mean it. I'm sure you're doing it for the same reason. You have the urge to make motion pictures, and I think it's wonderful. I feel home with you.
That's the reason I was asking, like, you writers,
Well,
write
honest.
scripts and
Yeah.
things, you judge on their previous work, I guess.
Well,
I don't know, I mean.
with writers, when you pick a writer, I think a writer should be cast to a project. Usually a producer has an idea what he's going to do. Sometimes it's an idea, sometimes he found the idea either in a book form or play form, and then it makes easier. But very often a creative producer has an idea and then he follows it through. Then he looks for a writer. Now, if you have a mystery story, if you have a science fiction story, then decide which part of science fiction, because God knows science fiction has many, many arms and many outlets. Then you find the best writer based on either what he did before or just by hunch that this man will do it. Well, very often you succeed, and sometimes you fail, that he doesn't come through. And of course you talk to the writer and you sense it if he responds. And once you find that certain mixture that is there, then you start to write. And we are writing differently than most producers. Most producers don't have a problem. They buy a book and they give it to the screenplay writer and come back and I'll see you when you finish the screenplay. And it's not so with science fiction, unfortunately. No, actually fortunately, because that's the fun part, really, when you work with a writer and if you can draw yourself, then you should work with a designer at the same time and make motion pictures, I mean. And with other words, that's motion pictures. It's the dialogues, I personally don't favor. I prefer pictures to dialogues. And every time I go through the script, if I find any dialogue unnecessary, out it goes. Because what for? Yeah. And that goes for that matter for scenes too. If you find in your screenplay that you take out a scene and you never miss it, why have it? I think everything then is an unnecessary link. If you can take out a link out of the chain is not good. So I think each chain should progress your story or be the essential part of your screenplay or story. And then beside that, you save money. It doesn't cost as much to shoot it.
Would that be even with shots like the crowds in War of the Worlds? I mean, do you really plan each one of those shots?
Yeah.
And not involving, special effects and just an action scene or something?
Well,
every shot.
I tell you something, with crowds, we very often use special effects.
Yeah.
You know why? Because the extras are so expensive. For instance, I tell you what, once in Houdini, made a picture in Houdini, there was a frozen river where Houdini is supposed to go in the hole in the frozen river. And there was a bridge and people were standing on the bridge by the thousands. But we had the camera low so that you couldn't see more than a row and a half people the most. And fortunately there have been 8 lampposts on the bridge where we shot it downtown here. And as of course we met again. But we shot 32 people, but 32 people between each lamppost. And we split the screen 8 times, and we had a crowd. And then actually the noise of thousands, So it shows that again, now if you do it really, that costs you 8 times as many extras to shoot. Sure, it's cost you a little money to put together, but that's a one-man's job in the lab. That's all. It's fun. It has a certain amount of satisfaction to fool the people this way too.
Is it true that for the time machine, the lava was colored oatmeal?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, the story behind that, how it,
Mm-hmm.
that's a very interesting story.
Well, you lava usually use oatmeal. The same is for quicksand. Mhm.
Can you get back even quicker?
Since instant oatmeal, volcano pictures should be cheaper.
But you know something, it used to be the major studios that had a big taboo about special effects. Nobody's supposed to tell about special effects because the mystery, the mysticism, and the mystery would be gone. But I didn't realize that as the motion picture business got older, how many young people became interested in motion pictures, how they are done. And actually it came to a point about 20 years ago that you could pick up more audience by disclosing your special effects than just being mum about it. Because lots of people, like with the midgets, where are the midgets? I looked at it 3 times, you know, and they're interested in it, how it's done. When you make when worlds collide, you know you didn't collide the worlds. It's just a couple of large bulbs. That's all.
What attracted you to the Atlantis story, and what problems did you have making that one?
Well, I had one big problem with it. That's a story problem on that one, because we had to start shooting before we really had a good script on it. It happened during the writer's strike, and we had to shoot the first draft what we had, and we couldn't rewrite it, and the studio had to have a picture made, and that was in those days, and we shot it. What attracted me to it, the legend of Atlantis, it's really, I think it was just in one of the magazines or Sunday papers, again I saw a map how the whole land areas of the world actually can be pushed together and they fit. There are lots of, well, obviously Africa and South America and Central America, North America, and Europe. You can put it together and it's almost like a puzzle. It fits. Then other things, mysterious things about it. How come that we have pyramids in the Western Hemisphere and then in Africa? Why pyramids? Why is the value of gold? It's not a good metal, it's too soft a metal for everything. Why did they value the gold so much in the Mayan and the Inca civilization as well as the Egyptian and the ancient European civilization? So before America was discovered, there are many, many mysteries about it, that it must have been a link where people communicated these things. That's what attracted me mainly.
What do you think of the work of Ray Harryhausen, and how would you compare his model animation work with that Gene Warren Watching did for you in Wonderful World of Brothers Grimm and Seven Faces of Dr. Lava?
Well,
Sea Monster was the director.
Ray Harryhausen, we worked together in the early days of Puppetoons. He's incomparable, really. I think he's so far advanced that I don't know anybody who is, I know somebody who is getting close to him, but he's the master. He's a dedicated man. I remember when he came to my studio, in the Puppetoon studio, with a little 8mm reel under his arm, and he had the projection with him, and showed it to me, a little monster, beautifully animated in 8mm. It was just out of school, fresh out of school, and of course I immediately was very happy to get him, and he worked for the Puppetoons for quite a while. But he has a tremendous talent. He knows movements, he studied movements, and he's just perfect.
How long did he work for you?
Oh, I would say about 3-4 years.
And what was his line of work at the studio?
Animation. Animation. He used the puppets and he animated. And he made some of the best scenes in the puppetry. Very talented man.
I could like to take this interruption here to introduce Forrest Ackerman, who came in late to our conversation. Mr. Ackerman is perhaps the authority in science fiction films. He's been producing a magazine having to do with monster films and science fiction. He's actually been the editor of 2 magazines, Spacemen, and the one that has survived now for, gosh, it must be about 15 years, I think. Call it 15. It's been Famous Monsters magazine. Forrest J. Ackerman has been a critic and wrote a review of War of the Worlds when it came out. It's a picture I knew he had a special interest in. It might be interesting to have him say a few words about how he saw the relationship of War of the Worlds to some of the other science fiction that we've seen.
Well, I have my own kind of private time machine when I think about War of the Worlds. Turns back the clock to the evening I saw it previewed at Paramount. And I believe I sent George a telegram or special delivery letter saying that I realized I'd forgotten to breathe for about 83 minutes during that production. I really bowled over when I realized that ever since 1926 I've been reading about force fields, and suddenly I was seeing one on the screen. I didn't quite realize at first what was happening. I saw the war machines, that shimmery surrounding electrical substance, and it struck me like, God, that's the old favorite science fiction device at last is so beautifully brought to life on the screen. Ray Harryhausen, I've known since it all began when as a kid he went out to a revival about 1937 of King Kong. The manager of the little theater at a loss for any stills had borrowed some of mine, and Ray had seen them and was so excited that he wanted them, so he's referred to me, and that started a relationship where he made a life mask of me, which still survives from about 1941. He made that, which is about that time that I became aware of George Powell when I was working at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and one afternoon he said, "Better come take a look at this. You're interested in Metropolis and things to come and pictures like that." And they had something called the Ship of the Ether, which is a very early Powell production.
One of the first.
It was?
Yeah.
Do you still have access to many or any of the miniatures and props that have been used in these different films? Are they still existing?
Very few, because unfortunately our home burned down in the Bel Air fire, and I had a whole garage full of all kind of props. But fortunately, Forey has a huge library. I think the best library in the world in science fiction, and on props and everything else. And Forey was good enough to send me a number of posters and stills and even some props from my pictures. So I have very few left. I think Forey has a hell of a lot more than I have.
I spirited out of Paramount, unbeknownst to everybody, one of the war machines, and I have that at home.
Yeah, so.
And machines were zapping people, or disintegrating, were so beautifully done. I should explain some, how in detail how you did some of those things. Were like,
For example, the
where the
skeleton, yeah.
the skeleton of the commander.
Yes. Just the Ray came in as the soldier ran toward camera. When he came to camera, he froze, and we shot some green light on him from under, because it's more frightening if you light something from under than from up. And we lit him as he froze, and we took that frame, that green frame, and then we drew his skeleton. We made a drawing of his skeleton, how it would be. Then we dissolved that in the skeleton over the green, and then I think we turned it gradually red, etc., and then finally this indicated, you know.
And then you're
That's-
asking,
The optical, that was really optical.
And then he moved, and then you shot the same, some of the same frame, right, so that.
No, he didn't move. Once he got frozen, that was it. I think that we didn't use anything after that. Then he left the screen, you know, and we used the, that's right, I know what you mean, that we used that frame, the frozen frame, when he turned green. And then we made him in a silhouette where he was completely green and whitish even.
When you disintegrated, say, the tank,
The same thing.
the same.
What happened? And then he goes out of the scene and we still have the background without
Right, you still
him.
have the background, but
Mhm.
there's a,
For instance, but the tank is a very simple one. That the tank came in and the death ray hit it, you know. What we did, it came in and moved, you know. Then we, then what happened? Wait a minute, let me think it so that I see it right. The way we shot it, the tank came in, and then we made the tank move back to the same place, you know, as it came, so the tracks remained reasonably the same. And we took the tank and then we silhouetted out and we blocked it out and then turned it red and then green or whatever it was and finally dissolved out. But after the tank went out, incidentally, we put a black spot on the floor, you know. We sprayed a black thing on the floor and we dissolved it in. As the tank became red and green or whatever, actually yellow or what the colors you used, and then finally dissolved into the empty ground, but the spot is the black spot.
in order to get your silhouette, is that just standard rotoscoping technique?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just standard.
The one complicating factor in that is the smoke.
Yes,
Okay,
if you
quite a
have
bit of
smoke, yeah.
and
Yeah.
weird things going
Yeah.
on now.
But if I remember, in this one, for instance, I think we put some smoke on the black, so, but when you dissolve it in, and that was a kind of ground smoke, so when you dissolve it in, it feels like it happened
I
at that
think
time.
the halations around the silhouette.
Or they just you throw it out of focus. You actually have the tank and you throw it out of focus and you have that soft line. All faking.
George, remember in Destination Moon, you had a no smoking problem because it's supposed to be on the airless moon, and you couldn't stop all the time, have fans blowing all this smoke out when you were going to make it.
Yeah, yeah.
But could you remind me? I recall that you actually, if you could have shot it the way you wanted to, it would have been even more similar to the familiar sight on the moon of a powdery surface. I seem to recall that you were bringing in truckloads of nice white sand and cleaning it up, and then you ran into some problem with having a sandy surface on the moon, and finally gave up on that and had all the cracks.
Yeah, well, that was part of it, and then that the dust was flowing, you know, when people walked on it, and then it was created a problem which it wouldn't happen.
Oh, I think we'll call our evening at an end now. I'd like to thank you very much, Mr. Powell, for joining us. You too, Mr. Ackerman. And I hope we can get you back with some of these drawings from Logan's Run as you're progressing on the field.
Right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I enjoyed it immensely. Oh, yes. I didn't realize you were kind of the mastermind of this.